We obviously were part of a very public loss, you know, that kind of the whole country, the whole world, like the whole industry. Like, one of the things that I remember most prominently about when Leslie died was how much I had to see that I'm not in control of the way other people feel, react, or cope. I really had this incredible experience of like seeing like, you gotta make room for everybody and everybody's process.
I was happy that the group was there because I had people to lean on. You don't know, there's moments when it hits you. Like I didn't, know that it would hit me in certain ways that it hit me and then I would be exposed. Because as I'm someone who doesn't like to necessarily show my emotions, and when they do come out, it's pretty strong. And I don't like people seeing me that way because they, have these ideas of what type of person are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm not that. I'm not crazy. I'm not. It was just emotional. He was such a bright light and somebody who you cared about you and you cared about him, and he would tell you like it is. And he was honest and he was loving and he was all these things. And you don't expect it. It was just so unexpected. It
was violent.
Yeah.
Like his death felt violent in that sense. And I think you really were in touch with that.
Yeah, I feel like I'm one of those people as well. I don't like to show my emotions. And when I do, I'm very pissed off about it. But I remember hearing about it and trying to take you off set because I don't like showing my emotions. And I'm like, oh my gosh, people are going to feel what we feel. And in that moment, we couldn't move. We just ended up being there. Leslie was the person that would always be like, long may we run. So for someone who was so youthful and just constantly living their life and doing all the things that like you could see that he was just doing anything and everything. Like when he got the opportunity, like, I'm about to live. And he's like, oh yeah, honey, I got a new song coming out. I'm like, what? He was like, oh yeah, I need y'all to do this for my TikTok. And I'm like, what? I don't even know. So just seeing someone who was so full of life and for it to be sudden and like you said, having to rewrite things and feeling like we just was like, we're not doing him justice, or we have to make sure that we're not just acting like he's not here anymore. And also reminding ourselves, like you said, that everyone grieves in a different way.
It's Mayim Bialik's breakdown. She's gonna break it down for you because she knows a thing or two. And now she's gonna break down. It's a breakdown. She's gonna break it down.
Hi, I'm Mayim Bialik.
I'm Jonathan Cohen.
And welcome to our breakdown.
We're sitting in the wrong seats.
We're sitting in the wrong seats for all the right reasons. We have two very special guests today. We haven't done a twosie like this.
This is the most people we've ever had on the podcast.
We are welcoming two incredible comedians, Kyla Pratt and Julian Gant, who I have worked with for the last 3 years. These were my only friends during COVID. And Kyla, you may know, she's a true icon for millennials. From her leading role on Disney Channel's The Proud Family to One-on-One, her numerous appearances in the Dr. Dolittle franchise. Kyla has been acting since she's a wee one, like since she's a teeny tiny child. And she plays characters that are outspoken, relatable. She plays characters that celebrate feminism, coming of age, Black culture. She's freaking amazing. She's been in movies, Love and Basketball, Fat Albert. She also is a mother. She's an incredible lady who I'm so thrilled to call my friend. Welcome, Kyla Pratt.
Thank you.
And Julian Gant is an actor and an improviser, a very, very skilled improviser who I first learned about from Groundlings. He's from Detroit. He's a main company Groundlings member. He's been on a lot of things. He's been on Reno 911 and Superior Donuts, Key and Peele. He was in a little film called As They Made Us, starring alongside Dustin Hoffman and Candice Bergen and Simon Helberg. That was the movie that I wrote and cast Julian in. And Julian is also our beloved cast member on Call Me Kat. And it's really a pleasure to welcome both of you to our podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That was so
right.
weird.
It's
Yeah,
weird.
That was
It's
like,
weird, I think, because we're always complimenting each other and we cut each other off when we do it. But because I was like, I have to behave because it's your podcast and you're saying words, I'm like, don't say anything. Let her talk.
That's right. I wasn't sure when I was going to speak.
And I wanted to tell him, act natural, because I just saw him go,
Wait a second.
she's talking about me now.
Right.
So, Jonathan and I wanted to have y'all on together, partly because obviously we work together and it's a fun dynamic. But the other reason is that you have a really awesome friendship and you're very playful together. And I thought it would be cool for us to talk a little bit about how you connect as actors, but also how different your trajectories have been to get here. Meaning Kyla has been acting since she's a little kid. This is Call Me Kat is your first series. So like very different. You know, Kyla's been in, do you know how many like series you've been in?
No. I
But
have no idea.
Tell us about like your, like when you started acting and how that happened.
Well, I started acting when I was about 7, 8 years old. My mom is an actress, and she was performing in plays. And I grew up basically watching her, and I think I was an extra in a background in one of her plays in LA. And I was like, "Ooh, I want to be like my mom." And so the opportunity came about because my grandmother was bragging on an airplane to strangers, showing pictures of her grandkids, and one of them happened to be a modeling agent. And she asked if I wanted to be a part of this modeling show. And I'm like, sure, I want to be like my mom. Like, this would be cool. And my first modeling show, I met and signed with a manager and agent who I was with for about 20 years.
Wow.
And I love it. I've always loved it. And I've always been the short, little, sassy, playful girl. I've always played younger than what I am. But yeah, it stuck. And people were always like, do you want to do something else? And I'm like, I can't imagine doing anything else.
And were you aware as a kid that like you were, because a lot of kids, like their parents are actors or they do stuff. Were you aware that you had kind of a special talent, or were you just like, oh, this seems like fun?
No, it just felt like fun. My mom was an actress at the time, but she, was a single parent.
So you didn't know how good you were.
You don't need to talk like that into
were
the
just no, you were just good. You didn't know.
I didn't know. I was having fun. Like, it was fun for me, and it was just fun for me. And I had a parent that was literally like, "Is this fun for you?" It wasn't a lot of pressure put on me. I didn't realize that there was some pressure that I put on myself as I got older. But when I was younger, my mom would just ask, like, is this still fun for you? Do you want to go on auditions? Because I couldn't do other things that kids could do after school. I couldn't be on the drill team. I couldn't be a part of different activities that my friends could. And I kind of had to look at acting as like, that's my after school activity. And no, I was just having fun. So my mom, being a single mother, she stopped acting and focused on taking care of us, and then kind of just pushed me out there. And now that I'm older and all of her kids are older, now I'm pushing her to get back into it.
I think IMDb has you listed as being on 55 different shows.
Wow.
Really? That's crazy.
It is crazy.
What's crazy is like being at Warner Brothers is nuts, because that was like the lot that I was always going to as a kid. Like, literally, I remember the security guards being like, "Hi, Kyla, how are you?" And I'm just coming in every week for a new show.
Wow.
And
Man.
it was fun.
Hold on, man. My childhood was nothing like what she just described.
So that's
For me?
Go ahead.
No, man. Me being in Detroit, I was a silly kid. I was a class clown, and just annoying my brother and sister all the time. And I felt like I had something special when I was a kid, but I never really explored what that special thing was. So, I started fighting, and I was, I thought I was going to be a fighter, is what I thought I was going to be.
Not like literally a street fighter. You took
Martial
on
arts.
training.
Yeah.
I mean,
trained-
Detroit is rough, but it's not that rough.
Which is why I learned how to fight.
What type of
Detroit
fighting?
is rough. So I've started off in Ishinru, which is an Okinawan art, a Japanese martial art. And then I jumped from there to Wing Chun Kung Fu. And then I jumped from there to capoeira. Then I jumped from there to kickboxing. Then I jumped to boxing. So I was a bunch of different styles and stuff. And I started boxing, and I was like, oh man, maybe I'll do this because I really loved it. Really love fighting. And then I started acting at 21, I believe. And it was this sketch show called Switchplay TV. And it was like Detroit's version of In Living Color. Right? So it would come on local access on Channel 20 at 1 a.m. in the morning.
Prime time.
Yeah, exactly, right? Prime time. So I was doing that. And after that, I really, really fell in love with acting. And then it was like me trying to choose, and I had just won some Golden Gloves. I was boxing and doing pretty decent. And then MMA started to come about. MMA came about, and I was like, maybe I'll do this. And my buddies was in Indianapolis, and I had my first MMA fight that I lost. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll still do this, but I don't know. And the boxing thing started hitting off again, and I had like 3-4 more fights. So I had an amateur record of like 5-0 and an MMA record of 0-1. So yeah, man, after all that, and the acting thing sort of started just rolling, and I was like, man, I really want to do this. And yeah, that's how it started.
How do you get on to like cable access? Like what is that like?
Dude, I don't know how these people did that. I think they paid for their time.
No, but for you, I mean, like coming out of a fighting background to like be like, how do you like get into?
Okay. So
acting's a good idea.
Right, well, so what happened was in college, right? My first year in college, I was like, oh, I'm gonna do pre-med. I'm a doctor. I can do this. And then
me too, yeah.
No way.
Yeah, me too.
First, I was like, nah, this is not right. So my second year,
Where'd you go to school?
I went to Wayne State University.
Okay.
My second year, I went to Eastern Michigan my first year, and I graduated from Wayne State. That's where your boy Bill
Brady, yeah.
Yeah, he went to Wayne State.
Oh, that's right.
So I actually was like, man, I don't like this. Second year computer engineer, was not a computer engineer. But it's not right either. So I was like, and that's when I started doing the Switchplay, and I was like, man, maybe I can figure out something behind the camera, because I knew I didn't want a theater degree. Because everybody who had a theater degree wasn't doing shit.
Yeah.
Can I say shit?
Yeah.
All right. They wasn't doing shit.
Not everybody, but the people that you knew.
The people I knew?
Yes.
With theater degrees?
Not everybody in
still
the
ain't
world.
doing shit.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry. Anybody who feels offended by that, I apologize. But no. I mean, it was just the reality. I didn't feel like they were doing anything in Detroit at that time until we got a 42% film incentive that the governor passed, and then studios and stuff started opening. And that's how the acting thing really started kicking off for me. And yeah, so
what's your first role?
My first role.
Like, are you nervous? Like, are you immediately funny?
I wasn't, because I wasn't nervous at all.
The class clown is often not nervous. Like that's
As
one
long
of
as you
those
get to
gifts.
be silly.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, when it came to serious stuff, that's when I was like nervous, because of I had a film that went to Sundance that I starred in called Bilal's Stand, and with that film, I went into initially audition for The Uncle, who was sort of comedy, and the director was like, "Oh, you know what? Let's change it. I want you to read for Mila," and Mila was a girl, and I was like, "It's a girl." He's like, "Yeah, but I just want to see what you do. Just read it as a guy." And I said, "Oh, okay, all right, I'll read it as a guy." So I read it, and he was like, "That was good." And he was like, "Here, read this scene," and he gave me another scene, and then I did that scene. And then the next time, it was like a week later, he was like, "I want you to come in, and you're gonna do chemistry tests." And I was like, "What is that?" And he was like, "I'm gonna have you read with a bunch of people." I was like, he didn't tell me that I had to roll or anything. And I was like, "Okay, cool." So I did it, and I read with all these different people, and he was like, "Yeah, so we want you to play the lead role." And I was like, "Okay, cool." But I was working at the time, didn't know how I was going to do that. I was working at this party rental company called Boots Party Rental. I had several jobs. So you know what party rental is? So if you
I can't.
So they would get all these, like, people would, ask for rent tables and chairs, and I would be the one bringing you the tables and the chairs.
I can't.
So I did that, and I had to get laid off. I asked my boss, Brian Blanford. I asked Brian, I said, "Hey, Brian, I just got cast to do this movie." He's like, "All right, cool." I was like, "But I'm gonna need you to lay me off." Because in order for me to get unemployment, he'd have to lay me off because the movie wasn't paying me anything. So I was like, "All right, bet." So he gave me unemployment. I was able to collect the check while I did this movie. So I shot this movie for 31 days. Nothing
And
happened.
you weren't in school at this time, right?
No. I had graduated from Wayne State.
Okay.
I graduated. So
I just think what's amazing about everything that he just said is like for anyone, especially the youth watching, like you don't have to know what you want to do like when you first graduate high school. This man just explained all these different majors, all these different things, and all he did was switch up, and then look where he is now.
Right.
Okay, so don't stress yourself out.
Right. And
I just have to add that.
That's right. And I was a communication specialist at MGM Grand Detroit. Now that's where I actually used my degree because I was using my communications degree. And I was in charge of all the internal and external communications that went on in the casino. So I would let all the employees know, like, what benefits package they were getting or what was happening as far as open enrollment and all that other stuff. So it was crazy.
Which is weird for me and probably you too, because we're with Julian when he basically has no sense at all.
Right.
So when he starts talking about like grown-up things, like he turns into a grown-up when he starts talking about fighting or when he talks about improv and cars.
And external communication.
Yeah.
So the fact that he's like, oh, I had like a job, and I was like, I had to do communicate. I'm like, you were communicating with people? Like, you were like telling them their benefits? Like, I don't see how this happened.
Were you wearing a button-up shirt?
No, I was wearing a suit.
Oh.
Every day, suits. Every day,
That's
suits.
crazy.
Because
I
we
was
only
suited
know
out.
you in t-shirts and sweats.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanna hear from each of you. What were the shows that you watched as a kid that you feel like contributed to your sense of comedy?
Oh, the first things that pop into head is Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and Martin. Just being silly, and I loved watching both of them because Martin just was ridiculously like stuff was happening on that show that was not real life, but it was so like stupid funny that you just had to laugh. And then I loved watching Fresh Prince because I felt like Fresh Prince had so many real moments in it that I was able to see the combo of like being a part of a comedy that gave you some real life energy that you can kind of relate to. So I think those are the first two that pop into my head.
For me, it was The Fresh Prince, Martin, In Living Color, One-on-One, Blossom.
Crazy.
It's crazy, and then to be working with y'all is insane.
You stalking us, bro?
Well,
I'm
was
glad
my
he
plan.
stopped saying that after like the first year because he used to come in weird, like, man, can't believe I'm working with y'all, man. This is crazy, man. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, man, Mayim Bialik, man. It's crazy, man. I'm like, what are you saying?
It's truly insane to not know what your destination is going to be, and then you have these lives of me watching you for what 5 years? Y'all did Blossom? How many seasons?
Yeah,
And I watched like every season. One-on-One was like 5 seasons. I watched. You don't know you're gonna do this thing that you do, and then you do it, and it's like when you think about it, it's kind of unbelievable. You go, wait a sec, hold on. I was just taking chairs and tables up the stairs, and now.
And what's crazy is like some of the shows that you mentioned, like Living Single, like I wasn't watching those shows. I was guest starring on them. I didn't even like think about like, to me, those shows were like grown. Like it was like, these ladies live in an apartment. Let me come in here when I'm 9 and do something. What is this show about? Oh, all right.
And you're both a little bit, well, are we the same? No, you're both younger than me. Because like I grew up also with like 227. I grew up with What's Happening Now. And like,
I feel like
that was great comedy. I mean, it was a different era. But like for me as a kid growing up, like watching
Different Strokes.
Yeah.
Like those were all the sitcoms that I watched.
I watched as an adult because I was too young.
Yeah, they were
to
too
watch.
young.
Yeah.
I watched.
I was also that kid that was like, I knew when stuff was too grown for me. And I was like, that's for grown-ups. I can't watch that.
What's Happening dealt with some very intense topics.
What was the Michael J. Fox show? I forget the name of it.
Family Ties?
Family Ties.
Yeah.
So
Who's
white-
the boss?
What was the one with the little robot
Yeah.
girl?
Small Wonder.
Yes.
Small Wonder. Yeah.
Small Wonder.
We have a lot of
About my
overlap
man
of
who
culture.
would fly in the air with air freshener. Who was that?
I can't.
Spray air freshener and fly in the air.
Who?
My Secret Identity. Y'all remember that?
I don't remember that.
No.
Jason Bateman.
Oh
No, it wasn't Jason
no.
Bateman. It was the guy who looked like him, though.
Can we get a?
Sure.
Yeah, Jerry
Oh.
O'Connell.
Hey.
Him and Jason Bateman. I get mixed up. He probably get me mixed up with a lot of other black people.
Mayim Bialik's Breakdown is supported by Athletic Greens.
We love using Athletic Greens every day. I started forcing Jonathan to take it because he's a super busy person. He needs to fill all those nutritional gaps. And when he doesn't, he gets grumpy, he gets tired. You don't like a nutritional gap.
No, I don't.
So, Jonathan, tell us what Athletic Greens is.
With one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right.
It's a special blend of ingredients that supports your gut health, your nervous system, energy, recovery, focus, your immune system, aging, all the things. Also, Jonathan, we love that it's lifestyle friendly. Are you keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free? It's for you. Also contains less than 1 gram of sugar. Also, no GMOs. There's no chemicals. There's no artificial anything. And it tastes good. It's a small habit with big benefits. It's something you can do every single day to take great care of yourself. Right now, reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. 1 scoop in a cup of water every day, and that's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is right now going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is go to athleticgreens.com/breakdown. Again, that's
athleticgreens.com/breakdown to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Mayim Bialik's Breakdown is supported by BetterHelp.
You know, every week, really every day, I have to do this balancing act. You know, I'm balancing my time between my work commitments, my mom commitments, my commitments to all the other people in my life, and also trying to take time for myself. But I'm not always great at that, and my kids are the first ones to tell me that. It's so easy to get caught up, though, in what everyone else needs from you that you can go a whole day and realize you haven't even taken a moment to think about what you need from yourself. If we spend all of our time giving, it can leave us feeling stretched thin and burned out. Therapy is a great way to not only take time for yourself, but to give you the tools to find more balance in your life so that you can keep supporting others without leaving yourself behind. And that's something that I've used therapy for so long, not only as a break from the craziness of life, but as a way to really say, how do I balance everything? How do I understand my motivations behind what I do for other people and what I need for myself? And where are my priorities?
I've actually been inspired by seeing how you take time out and you make it a priority to book a session and reset yourself.
That in and of itself is important. If you're thinking of starting therapy, do this for yourself and for those you love. Give BetterHelp a try. It's all online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire. You'll be matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch at any time for no additional charge. Find more balance with BetterHelp.
Visit betterhelp.com/break today to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/break.
So, Julian, one of the very distinctive things about you, and if you Google you and you Google images of you, you don't always have your distinctive hair.
Crazy.
I don't think I've ever Googled you.
Oh, it's really funny.
Hilarious.
I mean, I only think of you with the hair that you have,
Right.
but there are photos of you where it's like really short and it's like it doesn't look like you.
Yeah.
But I remember when we first went to cast you in Call Me Kat, there's conversation about it because like, oh, that's the look at it without hair.
Yeah.
That's strange.
Strange,
Wow.
It doesn't even look like you.
Also without facial hair.
Yeah.
It's
That
very
looks
different.
like you more than that damn cast picture that I can't stand.
yeah,
I cannot
yeah,
stand
cast
that. I'm
picture.
like, who is
Cast
this man? He is not
Yeah.
on our show.
Yeah.
The cast picture that of our first season, he has the hair,
I think
but he
they
has
did
no facial
Yeah, they
hair.
did weird photoshopping
and
too.
he's like, he just looked like he's 40
I
pounds
look chubby
heavier.
too. Yeah.
I hope we put that picture up on YouTube.
Yeah, it's
no.
Because
ridiculous.
you look like
Sorry.
a communication specialist in that. There you go.
Exactly.
He does.
So-
like
so-
I say, who's that man?
So the conversation, and also I should say, one of the really neat things about Call Me Kat is Darlene Hunt, who created our show. So she basically, one of the first things she said, like I think even before I was cast, was like, Kyla Pratt's going to be in this show. And I was like, oh, okay. And you had worked with Darlene before. And, I think you came in, I think you may have read for us, but like it was such a non-issue. Because she wrote this part, with your personality and your attitude and like just your Kyla-ness kind of built in. So we knew that we had Kyla and we had me, and then it kind of like we were the first two.
Yeah, I
kind of that
remember
were
the
locked
first thing
in.
I don't want to cut you off, but the first thing I remember meeting you, and it was like a blur, because I literally, it was like a time in my life where nothing was going on work-wise. And then all of a sudden, a million things were happening in like the same week and a half. Like I had 2 different shows that I was testing for. I was guest starring on Insecure. It was like Halloween weekend. I have kids. So I'm like rushing to school during Halloween parades and stuff. And so they sent me about 9 pages and they were like, we need you to test the day after Halloween. And I was like, okay. I was like, and then I remember walking in and you saying, hi, I'm Mayim. It's so nice to meet you. Sorry about all of this. I'm an actress too, so I get it's a little crazy. And I was like, oh, girl, don't worry about it. But then I feel like I wasn't really able to like breathe you in as a person because I was thinking about all the 9 pages that I had. And then after you walked away, I was like, oh, did I speak to her? Like, did I respond properly? Like, was I an asshole? And I was like, no, she understands. She gets it.
Yeah.
So I just
it was a lot.
it
was a lot of pages
going on.
So Kyla was cast and Leslie Jordan was originally a female character. It was Phyllis. So then they changed that to Phil, but and then Cheyenne, like I think Cheyenne might have been the last one that we cast. But I remember when we saw Julian, I mean, he's hilarious. But obviously there was conversation, among the suits of like, that's tall hair, and this is nothing against any of our executives. Like Warner Brothers was extremely supportive. Fox was extremely supportive, but there was definitely, I think, for many of us who grew up in the 80s and 90s, like the reference was like, is it Kid and Play hair? Remember? Because like Kid and Play, he had, and I was like, no, it's not that tall, right?
Yeah.
But it definitely was like, it was a thing. So we actually, there was a call that was put out to your, I don't know if it was your manager or your agent, and it was a very gentle question. It was like, is this like, is there specificity around it? Like, is there a preference? And the answer came back, yes, there's a very specific preference around it. I'd like you to tell us a little bit about what the origin story is.
Yeah, okay.
Of this beautiful hair.
So first I remember that call, and I also remember they wanted, because I told them, I was like, well, they asked me, like, would you cut it? I was like, no, absolutely not. I will not cut it. I was like, I can push it down. They were like, oh, can you send pictures of it pushed down?
Remember that?
I was like, yeah. So I put my do-rag on, let it push it down a little bit, and then push that, because it'll smush a bit.
It looked absurd, though.
Yeah, it looks.
Because it doesn't look like.
Yeah, it's not like what it is. Right. So basically.
And I remember thinking, balls.
Yeah.
That dude's got balls.
but I mean, if you don't stand for anything, you'll fall for. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything, right? And in 2014, August is when I started growing out, and that's when Mike Brown got killed. And I was just sick and tired of all the atrocities that was happening to young Black men. And it just got me so irritated. And I was like, what the fuck is it that you hate about us? What do you hate about me that fucking threatens you? What are you threatened by? The skin color, my lips, my hair, what is it? And I was like, man, fuck this. I'm gonna be the blackest that I can be. I am going to be a Black man. That's who I am. That's what I represent. A strong Black man. And that shouldn't be threatening. So I started growing my hair out. And I was like, man, it was sort of as a protest to, this is okay to have. It's okay to look like me and you not be threatened by it. So I started growing it out. And I've never cut this. In all that time, this has never been cut. It's just the sides that's been cut. But none of this. This is super long. It's never been cut. But yeah, it was, and I've had so many productions ask me to cut it. And I've lost several jobs because I wouldn't cut it. But it's just, you can take me as I am, or, and it's not like, it may not stay forever, but it'll stay until I'm like, okay.
Until you want to get rid of it.
Exactly.
I want to clarify for people listening. There was an inflection point. You were offered a job on a network television show.
Yeah.
Your first network television regular, right?
Right.
And there was a moment of they're potentially asking me if...
And it was a question
But
at that point.
I imagine you perceived it as, this job could go away if I choose
That's right.
wrongly,
Right.
quote unquote.
I've been broke before. I'll be broke again. Like
I just want to make sure people understood sort of that moment.
if you don't know who you are, people gonna start labeling who you are. People gonna start telling you who you are. I had to tell myself who I was, and had those conversations with myself. Like, what is it? What do you want to do in this business? And how do you want to achieve that thing? And then also, are you going to let people tell you who you are? And my dad always said, don't tell you. You know who you are. I raised you to be who you are.
Which is amazing because a lot of times in this industry, people are constantly telling you who you need to be and what you need to look like in order to get ahead. So that's why this story is so dope because especially I feel like as a female, you have all these moments where they're like, oh, cut your hair. You need to work out. You need to do this. Let's color this. There's so many things that they try to force you to be someone else. And I think that's where a lot of people get lost in this industry. So to be a person that's like, no, I will not do X, Y, and Z because you want me to, it's you have a lot of balls and it's a good way to be.
And you have had particular interactions with the police as well.
Absolutely.
Did those happen before? Was that
Yes.
part of sort of what contributed
Yes.
to also this identity building?
Yes, several. I mean, in Beverly Hills, I would take my wife to the nail shop, and I would park on the street, and every time the police would ride by, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And this one particular time, they asked me. They pulled up behind the car, come up to the car. Hey, how you doing? Just want to know what are you doing around here? I'm like, oh, my wife is in a nail shop. I'm just waiting, for. Oh, really? Yeah. You have your ID or? Yeah, I got my ID here. Take it. Can you step out the vehicle? Sure. Why though? Why did I do anything wrong? No. And I obliged. I'm not somebody who's gonna offer to get shot. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
When was this? Just in time? I mean,
this was 2015.
Mm-hmm.
2015. Also, I almost got shot by the police in Detroit. And this was undercover police officers. And I knew a police officer who lived in our neighborhood, Mr. Osbury. And so I'm walking from his house because we used to ride motorcycles and stuff together. And but before then, it was the dude named Mario. It was his father before we started riding motorcycles. So I was like 15, 16. And I'm walking home, and I had a slingshot on me. And
you do.
Yeah, right. Me and Mario was playing with this slingshot, right? So now I'm walking to the house, and as I'm walking home, police, I'm walking, and they pull up. Get on the ground. And the dude comes up. He's got the gun to my head. And what scared me the most wasn't the fact that I had a gun pulled on me. It was how afraid he was when he told me to get on the ground. Just how much his hand was shaking when he had the gun on my head. And I'm like, yo, and I kept saying, you gonna shoot me? You gonna shoot me? Like I'm on the ground, I'm looking, and the corner of my eye, the gun is here, and it's shaking. I'm like, you gonna shoot me? You gonna shoot me? And thankfully, I didn't get shot that day. But I had several run-ins with the police. Some were nice, and some were not so nice. So, and just the racial profiling would happen all the time in Redford, Michigan. I'm from Detroit. And just like maybe 3 blocks, I'm from a neighborhood called Brightmoor. And next to Brightmoor is a neighborhood called Redford. And Redford is it's called Redford Township. And Redford is a suburb of Detroit. So you cross the way, immediately you get pulled over. You can just be driving on Telegraph, which is a street. You drive on Telegraph and the police see you. They will come around and pull you over. It would happen all the time. So just all my run-ins. And I'm like, man, I'm sick of this. Yo, I'm going to be who I am. And it is what it is.
Mayim Bialik's breakdown is supported by Lomi by Pila.
Many of us experience eco-guilt, that feeling that like you're just not doing your part to help the environment. I know I do. But then we got a Lomi for the studio. Lomi allows us to turn our food scraps into dirt with the push of a button. It's a countertop electric composter that turns tons of scraps into a little bit of dirt in under 4 hours. Also, there is no smell when it runs, and it's really quiet. The two things I was worried about. Thanks to Lomi, I have way less garbage each week. Like, you can go from 3 bags a week to 1. Like, it's that significant. And that means I'm saving bags of garbage from landfills and producing less methane. Instead, we are turning our waste into nutrient-rich dirt that we feed to our plants. Food makes up such a huge portion of our personal carbon footprint. By reducing the amount of food that we are sending to the landfill, we're doing our part, and I don't feel guilty when I throw things out anymore. If you want to start making a positive environmental impact or just make cleanup after dinner so much easier, Lomi is perfect for you. Go to lomi.com/breakdown. Use the promo code BREAKDOWN to get $50 off your Lomi.
That's $50 off when you head to lomi.com/breakdown and use promo code BREAKDOWN at checkout.
Food waste is gross. Let Lomi save you a cold trip out to the garbage can.
Mayim Bialik's Breakdown is supported by the new Soulful Jewish Living podcast.
Jonathan, what's the night of the week that I have the hardest time sleeping?
Friday and Saturday.
No. Well, all of the days, but in particular Sunday. Why? Because at the end of the weekend, my mind is full of all the things that I either didn't get done or that I have to get done. And like, if you give me some free time, I'll have a weird fight with someone.
You're back on Slack. You're returning emails.
That's right. And we've all been there. And honestly, a lot of us are probably where I am every Sunday night. So here's a great way to start your week right with the latest podcast from Unpacked and the Institute for Jewish Spirituality. It's called Soulful Jewish Living, Mindful Practices for Every Day. The host is Rabbi Josh Fagelson, and he guides you towards practices that are 2,000 years in the making. And in under 10 minutes, you can feel more centered, more connected, and you'll get simple practices to help you overcome any negative thoughts that come your way. It's literally the easiest form of self-care that you can do for your soul. Listen to Soulful Jewish Living, Mindful Practices for Every Day on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Kyla, I wonder if you can speak a little bit to your experience, because obviously as a Black woman, you've had a tremendous amount of experiences at kind of that intersection also of being Black and also being female. And you've lived your life in the public eye as well. So I wonder if you can speak a little bit to, you know, it's a different kind of perception of, you know, who owns you, who owns your image, who owns what you're like. If you can just talk, because you come from a very strong family. You come from a family with like a lot of principles, a lot of support, a lot of
Black Panthers.
No, but your family, from what I gather from how I've gotten to know you and your family, y'all talk a lot.
Yes.
Meaning things are talked about, things are processed, things are worked through. So I know a lot of this must have come up as you also were valued for your beauty, you know, for your intelligence, for your talent, but you were placed in so many situations where you were an object.
Yeah. It's crazy because recently my mom she asked me this before, but I think she didn't remember asking me, but she asked me recently. She was like, with everything that was going on with Me Too, and she was like, Kyla, you've never had one of those situations, have you? Like, you've never had like a casting couch, like, and I was like, no. And I told her, I said, I think it's because people know that I'm nuts. Like, you know, the family that I do have, like, we're very, we talk about things. I've been raised since I was very young to know who I am and to be a leader. And even being younger on sitcoms that I was on, like, somebody would start talking to me and a co-star about our weight. And I feel like the other people that were talked to, they kind of took it the opposite way that I took it. I took it as in my head. Now, a lot of people watching, y'all know a version of Kyla that, you know, is polished, is very professional. You know, I'm a young Black girl, and I've always been taught to respect my elders and carry yourself a certain way. But a lot of people don't know, like, I'm with the business. I have no problem with telling somebody about themselves or standing up for myself.
I've seen her do it.
And I've always been that way. So even as a teenager and someone saying something to me about watching what I'm eating or my weight, I kind of, in my head, I'm like, no, no, they did not just tell. If I had issues, I could be, I'll show. But I went into a mode of, I'll show their asses. And I was like, well, I'm going to get physical and I'm going to start working out and I'll show you. Like, I'm not going to do that. But I got more upset because I think about the people that they spoke to that don't have that same energy and fall victim to like having those type of issues because of being an object and wanting to be looked at a certain way. I think it did kickstart me like working out and, you know, kind of like I'll show you, I can eat whatever I want. Like I'm 15, I'm 16, like y'all can kiss my ass. But just, you know, different things here and there. But I've always been the person that's like, no, I don't want to. Or I've fought a little bit as I got older with transitioning into more adult roles of feeling like I look like a kid or I can't play this role because I look too young. Or I remember getting a job where I was playing a lawyer and I was like, what? Like I was psyching myself out because no one said you can't do this. In my brain, I was like, no one sees me as this age. So what do I need to do? Like I how can I change my physical? But then once you start to acknowledge it and be like, wait, I'm tripping. Like I'm allowing other people's opinions to fuck with my mental and I need to not do that. So I didn't have a lot of experiences growing up because I feel like at a certain point people realized like, oh, Kyla's not having it type of vibe.
I think if I can just interrupt, like when you said that people know you're crazy, you're using it playfully to say like when you say crazy, what I'm hearing you say is like people know that you're not easy to push over.
Yes.
You're going to stand up for yourself.
Absolutely.
If someone does something wrong and you're a kid, you're going to tell your mom.
That is a better way of explaining crazy. I know that Heather, our hostess, is always like, Kyla, stop calling yourself crazy.
Right.
And I'm like, no, I want people to know. Don't play with me. Like, I want you to know I'm not the one. Like, but that is a better way of saying it. Like, I'm going to stand up for myself in any and every situation. And I want to be respected. And I remember reading an interview, I think it was Jessica Alba did not too long ago, where she was saying she avoided a lot of things in the industry because she realized she had to tap into a masculine energy in order to not be preyed upon.
Wow.
And I read it and I was like, oh, damn, is that what I've always done? I've tapped into a different energy to be like, you know, I'll tell a man straight up, like, oh, is this a competition? Like, you want to see who's bigger? Don't play with me. Like, okay. Like, but, and so I think my energy demands a certain amount of respect. And, you know, but I'm easy and I'm so easy to deal with. Like, I'm so like, I love what we do. I love collaborating. I love the whole process of creating. So I'm a work with you, girl, but don't play with me. Why you playing?
So one of the things that I've learned about from you and also from the culture of the industry that we're now in, where we have, you know, diversity conversations and, you know, and as a producer, like I get to listen in and be part of conversations about like, what does it mean to have diversity in the writer's room? What does it mean to have diversity on a crew? And in many situations, you know, especially on our show, like it's important for me as a producer and for us as a show to have Black representation on our crew and in our, like, these are things that we're all working towards, you know? But one of the arenas that I got to learn about in some of our diversity training, which I know it sounds so stupid. It sounds like what a bunch of white people sit around and do. But one of the things that I learned about was how many actors are told by cinematographers or DPs, I'm sorry, we can't light you. Or if you're on a show with Black people and white people, and we've had these conversations, right? And I've had these conversations at higher levels that, you know, there were people not on our show, but on other shows where the actors literally had to say that they were told specifically, we're just doing the best we can, but we can't light you, that's right? Crazy. Because like literally your skin it's too dark for us to, like it's insane. But one of the other areas that like I never thought would have been an issue for you because like, you're a star. Like, you've been a star since you're so little, but I'd like you to talk a little bit, and not to disparage any particular production or person, but even well-meaning hair and makeup people.
Yeah.
And there's things that you've told me that you essentially had to take on for yourself.
Yes.
To make sure that you just look like yourself. And it's kind of interesting. It's like, I'm not trying to draw parallels because it's a different hair issue, but in terms of how you present yourself, can you talk a little bit about some of the experiences you've had?
Oh, my earliest experiences with that, I remember being on set and my mom redoing my hair in the trailer. Because they just simply didn't know how to do it. And then my issues
And we're not just talking like, oh, I want it to look, you were talking like someone once added water to your hair.
Yes, we're talking about like me. And then as I'm getting older, being on sets where the majority of the cast is Black women, and we did not have our key, and none of our hair people were of the same. We weren't the same. You know, and that's not to say that other ethnicities cannot do our hair, but my issue is I have a problem when people say they can do something that they cannot do, or people act like they can't be teachable. Because if we're having a conversation about my hair that's on my head
and how you look,
kind of been dealing with it for my whole life. I think I'm an expert at this conversation. No matter how long you've done hair, this is mine. I have an issue with people just pretending like they know what to do. And even if you lied to get the job, like now we're sitting in the chair. We're sitting in the chair. I've had hairstylists not wanting to use a lot of spray. So they'll be like, oh, just put a little water on her hair. I'm like, ma'am, I have a weave. And if you put water on that part, the texture is going to change. And you're going to have me looking crazy. We're not doing that. So, and then when I don't feel like I'm being listened to, I don't like to repeat myself. So then I just bear with it. And then I'll go into the trailer and have my own flat iron and curling iron and hair supplies and just do it myself. And what's crazy is they never even notice that I made a difference. And just, I'm the easiest, I love what I do. I'm one of the easiest people to work with. Literally on almost every set, my issue is always with the hair department. And they're very nice people, but it's a conversation. And then also like just being in spaces, that's what I appreciated coming on Call Me Kat, because you are a person who think outside of your own box. Mayim, I'm talking about Mayim. Mayim thinks outside of her own box and thinks about how to make other people feel as comfortable as they can. So that was one of our first conversations.
That's why I do your hair on Call Me Kat.
Yes.
That's the solution.
Yes, just with a brush. I don't let her put any heat in it. No, but like you make sure that we're involved in the conversation, which does not happen. We go to different places and it's like you just got to deal with what you're dealt with and roll with the punches. And then being an artist at the same time, you don't want to have something like hair or how you look interfere with the work. Because how are you supposed to concentrate on being this character when you don't even feel good in what you look like or what the character is supposed to be giving? You know what I mean? So to be on different sets and then just have to be like, you know what? I'm just gonna have to act my ass off and just forget. If the hair look as long as I don't have tracks showing, I'm not gonna complain. Like you find the reasons, but it shouldn't have to be that hard.
Well, and also I think it's an interesting point because even though we're actors and you're, saying the lines on the page, there's something about also wanting to feel comfortable enough that you can put you aside.
Yes.
Right? So if you're not comfortable in what you're wearing, and this is true of all humans,
yes.
right?
Yes.
If you're over focused, on that the clothes don't feel right or your hair doesn't, or you don't feel
it's
good.
hugging somewhere that doesn't need to be held.
Or it's holding somewhere. That's right.
Take it off.
That takes a certain amount of energy, you know? And I actually want to use that to kind of transition into a conversation about energy. Because one of the things, Kyla, that I really respect about you is you have access to a lot of things that many people don't talk about. And you're not ashamed to lean into it. So I did not expect that you'd be a person like you gave me like a crystal when we first started working together.
Mhm.
And
She brought a crystal today.
she brought a
It
crystal
was
today.
in my pocket.
She almost always has something in her pocket.
Beautiful
But,
piece, by the
I
way.
have a couple more in my purse.
Whoa, hold on. What else you
Oh
have?
gosh, do I have to go digging?
Yeah, let's see.
Oh goodness, we have
Oh.
this one.
Oh,
That's a
my.
pretty
That's an
one.
orb.
It's an orb.
I don't know what this one is.
I like
It's
keeping-
nice though.
Basically, I love energy. I'm all about
Do
energy.
it. I know, but I want people to know about
I'll tell
it.
people real quick. I'm gonna need you to step back. I'm gonna need you to calm down. It's getting on me.
What do you? Okay, so talk about
getting
that.
on
It's
me.
getting on me, and I can't
No,
take it.
but
I am
so
I'm
you're
an
very
em-
sensitive.
I am an empath. I really care so much when it comes to people and how they feel and their energy. I've learned grounding. It's harder for me to do when I have not gotten enough rest, which happens to be a lot. So usually when I'm having moments that I'm feeling someone's energy and I haven't been able to ground because I just can't because I'm exhausted, I usually have to be like, I need you to step back. But I also have to learn how to ground and block energy, like even with giving hugs. I try to work on like when I'm giving a hug, giving someone great energy, but blocking anything that they might have to pass to me. Or,
so talk about. I want you to talk about what it feels like, what it feels like in your body, because you once said this, and I think it might have been when Leslie Jordan passed away, and I remember you said something about like when you are depleted, either because something's going on or because you're tired. That you said that and it's something that like, I love the way you talk about it because it doesn't sound like, woo, new age.
Right.
Like what you said was that like, if you don't have enough resources essentially for yourself, you feel more permeable. It's like things can get to you that wouldn't. So I want to know, is this something you grew up knowing was?
No, I basically, I feel like everybody has a point in their life where like something like makes a switch or you go through something. And literally after having my kids is the first time I ever doubted myself. Being a teenager, being a young girl, working all the time, I found what I loved. I didn't question anything about me. It was like, oh, I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna kill it. And if I don't know how to do it, I'm gonna learn how to do it, But after having children, I was just like, I guess
There's
I had
no
a lot
instruction manual.
There's no instruction manual. The world is constantly telling you you're not doing things correctly, or you see someone else doing something and you're like, ooh, I hope I can be that type of parent. And then you see other people doing stuff or things that you've experienced where you're like, ooh, I don't want to do that. And I tell people all the time, like, I'm just trying my best to raise children that they have the least amount of stuff to heal from. Like, that's my goal, is that, they're going to have some stuff, but, and I think at that time, that's when I stopped eating meat, because I realized that I was eating emotional eating, and then I wasn't working out because I didn't have time. I had 2 kids, and I was trying to audition, and I just didn't feel like myself anymore. And then I realized that I'm very attached to my family. I'm very close to my family, and all our energies are all very big. And I take on people's anything. Like, I've been taking care of people since I was a kid, not even realizing that I was doing it. But as I got older, I kind of put a little more pressure on myself. And I kind of had moments where I was like, I have to figure something out because I don't feel emotionally stable. And I need to be mentally together in order to be the best mom that I can be, in order to not fuck these kids up. Like, that's that's my whole reason for getting me situated. I'm also not a person that shares when I need help. I think my man, he'll come in the room and I'll pretend like nothing's wrong and everything, but then he'll leave the room and I'll just be boohoo crying. And so I'm also learning to ask for help. That's something that he's really on top of me for, like making sure that he's like, you're doing too much for everyone. And I got connected with crystals and stuff because it's like even my crystals now, like I tell people, like, I'm not a master. I'm not the person, I can't look at something and be like, oh, that's, that's this and it does this for you. Like, I literally go to the crystal shop, I take my kids and I tell them, I say, anything that you feel drawn to, I say, pick it up and then tell mommy so I can take a picture of what it means. And then that's your crystal. And you can get 2 or 3 of them. And I really feel like whatever I have a bunch of crystals in our bathroom, and I'll just go see what I'm drawn to that day. And I'll pick it up and I'll carry it with me all day. And at the end of the day, I'll look and be like, oh, what does this mean? Why did I need this today? And I'll be like, oh, shit, I really needed this today. So it's not like I'm not a master at anything. I just really, I can feel. Like
What happens if you're with someone who has like frenetic energy and they're all over the place? What does it feel like in your body?
I get it. And I'm like, and I have to start breathing. Or I have to take a step back and I have to say, Kyla, this is not your, and then I want to calm them, but then realizing if I can't calm them, I can't, like I've worked with assistant directors or that have to come get me from my trailer, and they're like, and I'm like, ooh, like, are you stressed out? Because I need you to take a deep breath because I don't want to feel that when I'm already exhausted and I'm learning several lines that they keep switching up last minute. Like I need you to breathe because I'll say, ooh, I can't ground today. Can you have somebody else come get me, please? Like but it's things that I have to bring up. And I know all the time I'm not going to be in a position where I can say, can you not? You know what I mean? So
Sure.
I'm learning to deal with different energies. But sometimes people are like, where's Kyla? It's like, Kyla doesn't want to deal with a bunch of different energies or any type of bullshit or any type of fake anything. So Kyla's at the house with her kids, or, I pick and choose where I am and where I go. So
you also have a set of really interesting things that you eat and don't eat that change the way you feel.
Yes.
And this was, I've known you for 3 years, so there's a lot of trial and error. Like sometimes you'll be like, oh, can I eat this or can I not eat that? But for someone who like doesn't, like, let's say someone's listening or watching who like doesn't at all think about what they eat at all.
Oh, must be nice.
Well, can you explain though? Because I think that many people eat things that don't sit well with them.
Yes.
But we don't know it. I only very recently realized that when I eat, like, with all due respect to Chinese food, when I eat Chinese food, I will wake up the next morning feeling like consistently super puffy and like bloated and gassy.
Yeah.
And just like crummy.
Yeah.
Like as if like my body couldn't get over it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really until Jonathan started talking to me about this that like, that's a thing. Like people eat things all the time.
Because it tastes good.
Right. So tell me what it feels like in your body. Because like sometimes you will get somatic pain.
Yeah.
Like you'll need to like stretch or like you'll tell us like, I'm going to lay down. What does that feel like in your body?
Well, I'm very in tune with my body. So I am the girl who has a yoga mat at work. And
it's always there. That might as well be your carpet.
I bought a yoga mat for work, like to keep in my room. And I'm constantly stretching. If I come in a little bit early, even the ADs are like, oh, you got time for your stretch? I'm like, yes, because I need it. Or I'll be randomly on set.
What are you stretching?
I randomly be like, if I have like lower back pain or if my hips are too tight, like I'm so in tune with my body, and I feel when I can feel when things are off, when they're not right. And I realized after I stopped eating meat, and but I really stopped eating meat because I knew that I was overdoing it. Because my mom was always like, only things in moderation, but I was overdoing. I was eating things that made me feel good emotionally. And then as soon as I was done eating it, I'd be like, why did I eat that? Oh my God. And I don't have time to work out. And I feel like shit and I'm gonna break out. So I basically was like, okay, I'm done with meat for a little bit. And then I'll still do seafood. And I just got to a point where I think I had like a random rash pop up. And I'm really big on like skin and moisturizing and
beautiful
smoothness. Like thank you. I'm really big on it. So with me getting a rash, I'm like, hold the hell on, what's going on? And
skin stuff is many, many times diet.
Yes.
And stress, and sometimes the food creates stress in the body. It's like a thing, like it's a science thing.
So literally, I think I got
I call it the epidermis.
I got a little rash, and so my man was like, "Oh, you gotta like go check that out, like make sure you're good." And I went to a dermatologist who just gave me some cream, and he was like, well, we don't know what it is, but this helps it go away, blah, blah, blah.
Here are some steroids.
And I was like, oh, so it's just, but I took it as like, oh, we're just covering it up. Like, why is it keep coming back? And so then I went to an allergist and got tested for food and literally walked out of there so excited because I was like, yes, I'm not allergic to seafood. I was like, I was dancing. Like, I was so happy until I realized the list that he gave me basically said I was allergic to everything that I was eating. And it's not like a deathly allergy. I don't need an EpiPen.
They call it a food sensitivity when it's at that level that you're not.
But it's still, I realized that certain foods, I get back pain. I get really bad back pain. I didn't know that I had back pain for like 4.5 years because I had stopped eating meat and I started using meat substitution products. Right. But I would make sure that they didn't have soy because I know that too much soy is not good for you. But if something's not held together by soy, it's held together by wheat. Yep. And I can't have wheat.
Right.
So, and then as soon as I did like 30 days of like clearing my system, I had no more back pain. And I was like, what? Like this whole, what do you mean everything that tastes good, I can't? But even now, like if I slip up and have something like, oh, I'm just going to have a little bit, my body is just so upset with me and I don't want it to be. I want to feel good. I want to have good gut health. A lot of people don't recognize like a lot of illnesses come from our gut health. And I'm telling people all the time now, I'm like, hey, before you go have that surgery or before you go do this, like, go check your allergies and make sure you're not consuming something that's not good for you personally. Because like I talked to a friend recently who we realized we were allergic to the same things. And I told her I had to stop drinking juice. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, there's something on juices that say natural flavors that is not explained what natural flavors is. And the allergist told me if you have a soy allergy, don't drink that. And I realized that me drinking juice, I was nauseous every time I was drinking juice. And she was like, I'm nauseous every time I have orange juice or apple. So I just stopped buying it. And I'm like, yeah, like literally we have to have things like, we don't realize how many things that we're consuming that are processed. And so now it's like me having to cook at home is a pain in the butt all the time. So every once in a while and you eat really good, which helps me a lot. The fact that you guys are good, like helps a lot. And especially like not drinking and stuff, that helps me, chill out on tequila. Yeah. But
alcohol is a toxin.
And being around other people, like-minded people, like his wife would make him salads to work, and I'm like, ooh, what's in that? Can she teach me how to make this dressing? And can I have this seasoning? Like, it's nice to be around people who also are conscious of the things that they eat because it helps me. Even though I can't. I made a really good dairy-free seafood pasta the other day, and it was fire. And then I had gluten-free noodles and regular noodles, so everybody got to have some. So I'm like finding new recipes and new things to eat. I'm trying not to let it bother me. But also, I was talking to someone, and they were saying that they healed their gut by doing a certain diet.
Every body is still different.
Yes.
But I think, even just having that awareness and then, of course, there's me and Julian who we are vegan. We both happen to be vegan. We also both love potato chips. And that's like a real sickness for both of us. We're both chip heads.
Sickness.
But I did want to pick up on something and kind of take it over to Julian and ask, you mentioned a lot of the things, Kyla, you mentioned a lot of things that you do kind of for regulation so that you feel good. And I wonder, Julian, not all men are different than women, but I know that for you as a dude, there's a different kind of expectation. And especially I think for actors, for performers, we have to get into our emotions a lot, and a lot of times like even though we work on a sitcom, like there's a lot of stuff that's intense. And then we also had, this enormous emotional thing happen to all of us in that we lost our friend and our castmate. And I wonder if you can speak just a little bit about sort of like how you use your emotions both as a comedian and then how you sort of balance that out when you have to deal with heavy emotional things, not as a comedian.
I love being able to do the comedy because it makes me happy. I don't like going to those places where I have to be sad. I can do it, and I feel like I do it pretty well. And it's just, because that's a real place. You know, acting it's still real in the moment,
Yeah.
right? And I was talking to Dustin Hoffman on the set, and I said, all right, Dustin, give me one piece of advice that I could have that only I can say you gave me, and I can be like, yo, I learned from Dustin Hoffman. And he was like, just always be you.
Hmm.
And I said, okay. He's like, no matter what character you play, just be you.
Hmm.
Even being in the character, just be you in the character, because that makes it real.
Hmm.
And then I was like, all right. And he was like, and then another thing he said was, all these actors, they do say, I gotta feel, I gotta feel, I gotta feel. But it's not my job to feel. My job is to make them feel.
Mm.
And then I was like, damn. So I think as far as, like I said, I love comedy, but in order to get to those different emotional places, you have to be vulnerable with yourself.
Mm.
And I had to learn that, like, and I usually get, before, you know, coming to LA, I would get picked for dramatic stuff all the time. Like,
you
all
are
the
good at
time.
it.
And I'd be like, man, why y'all, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to. And then it got to the point, well, it's acting. And I'm like, what I do love doing is character acting. Like, I'm a big character actor. I love playing different characters. Now, when I'm that, then it doesn't feel like it's Julian going to those places. It feels like it's that other person going to those different places. So, yeah, it is a mind. I want to say a mind fuck, because it's like, on one hand it's this, but on the other hand is this. It's like, I love it, but it's, you know, sometimes tragic going to those places. I did a film in Florida that that I just got done doing. I played a preacher, and it's basically the story of Job. And all these things are being taken away from him, his family, the church, and he's just in a very, very sad place. And having to go there every day was just exhausting.
Yeah.
It's exhausting. No,
I mean, I was going to add, because you said you kept getting booked for dramatic things. So I grew up doing comedy. And so, like I told you before, when someone tells me that I can't do something, then I'm like, I'm going to show you. Like, so then I started looking for dramatic parts and not realizing how intense they were. And I think this was around the time of like me having kids. Like, I had just had my kids. So I think all of that happening at one time and having to play someone, you know, with mental health issues or drug issues, I am very happy with the end product. But to go there was like a feeling that I had never felt before, because it's always been like, oh, bubbly Kyla running around and just doing something funny. But I love what you just said that Dustin said, Mr. Hoffman, because it's like, that's always my goal, is I love to make people feel something, feel some type of emotion. I'd rather them feel happy, but it also makes me feel good as an artist to move them in the other way as well.
I'm going to ask a kind of I don't know, I hadn't even thought of asking this, but I'd like to. We sometimes talk about aspects of your characters that there's often sensitivity about, in terms of, because you represent a Black, I mean, you're a Black person, right? You're representing something, you know, it's not just you, it's you, and then all the perceptions people have about Black women or Black men, right? And I wonder, you know, we've talked about, you know, certain aspects of characters, like if your character's being kind of like silly or being kind of like a little dopey. And like, we always kind of, I feel like we as friends, like we kind of walk this line, or even with you, like, how sassy does a character need to be in order for that to be her identity? You know, like, is that the extension of the identity? And I wonder how much you think about that. Like, when you design kind of how to play a character, how much does that come into play for you?
A lot of it comes into play a lot. I think with us, it's been cool because we have such an open conversation with our writers and our producers, and we'll easily say, oh no, Black person, we can't say that. Or my character will say something about, like, because I'm, you know, Randy's always talking mess and she's doing this and she's doing that. And I'm like, all right, y'all, we have to find the balance, because this is my man, like, on the show. This is my man. Like, I can talk mess to him, but y'all got to give me the moments where I'm giving him, where you know that I'm in love with this person. Like, let me be nice to him. I don't want to be mean to him. Or if they have a specific joke, I think when I was out one time, he was like, yeah, Kyla not gonna say that. And then they were like, Kyla's not gonna say that. And they just took it out. And we do that for each other. But I'm like, it's funny because I was, of course, excited to be a part of the show. Darlene, I had worked with Darlene before. But we were both a part of the show before there was a script. And I remember seeing announcements for cast members. And I had no idea what the script was. And I remember seeing Julian announced, and I was like, another Black person. Like, I knew for sure that there was going to be someone there that can relate to me on a different level. And I knew that I was going to have I don't know everybody else. You never know any personalities that you're getting into when you start to work with anyone, no matter what ethnicity they are. But automatically I was like, all right, somebody gonna understand me, to a certain extent. And it was like, it's dope because our friendship has built so much just knowing that we have each other. But the bond with everybody has, before when we walked in, it's like, ooh. Yeah. But we became such a family so quick, our entire cast. So yeah.
Man.
What do you think in terms of like what you represent or what your character represents?
I think there has to be space for what I represent. And I want that space to be, so for instance, Cheyenne is a strong masculine man in the show, right? And what we were doing a Halloween episode. And for the Halloween episode, they wanted me to be in a dress. And they wanted Cheyenne to be the Mandalorian, right? So I said, wait a sec, you want me to be in a dress? I said, no, that can't happen. I'm not going to be in a dress.
I was like, that y'all know you're not going to do that, right? Yeah. Like, I spoke into the microphone. Y'all know that.
I said, that can't happen. He was like, well, what? And then and so we were talking to wardrobe, and I was like, no, that's not going to happen. We can't do that. And Cheyenne was like, what? What are you talking about? Why not? And I was like, wait. He's like, why won't you just wear a dress? I was like, hold on, Cheyenne, wait, are we getting ready to get into this right now?
Well, and the question could have been, do you not think that it wasn't a gay issue?
No,
it wasn't right.
Not at all.
I think that's right.
And that's the thing.
Not that gay men wear dresses. I didn't mean it like that.
Exactly. So it was the conversation of what do I represent? And what do I want this character to represent? I wanted Carter to represent a strong Black man. A strong masculine Black man.
Right.
There is space for that. Just like there's space for a feminine man. There's space for all of us, right? I just wanted that space carved out for him, and it shouldn't be an issue.
Right.
And so me and Cheyenne had this conversation, and Cheyenne was like, I never looked at it like that. It's not that you shitting on me. You're not shitting on gay dudes or shitting on people, drag queens or what. It's not. No, it's just that's not what this represents. And that's okay. Because it's okay to do it the other way too.
Right.
I think that's what's great about being in such a melting pot of people is that we have conversations about things and the other person is able to sit back and be like, I never thought about it like that. Because everybody comes from different places and different experiences and different things that they've gone through. And sometimes it's like the world that we live in. We all don't have the same experiences. But if everyone was more like us in being able to have conversations without being accusatory or without, anything crazy,
and accepting
the world would be a better place. Because I remember they were going to have this conversation and I was like, oh, they're about to have this conversation. But the way that it was explained and the way that it was received was great. And of course, the writers and the team didn't have an issue with him saying that, that's something that he didn't want to do.
And I think also I want to ask one final question because, we obviously were part of a very public loss, that kind of the whole country, the whole world, like the whole industry, like asking us about and talking about. And, I've spoken a little bit, I didn't really want to talk about it for a long time. And I don't want to talk about it today because there's things that we had to go through that I think are nobody's business, you know? But the one thing I did want you to speak to is what it was like for each of you, and then I'll share, mine. I can start kind of what it was like to grieve in a group. Because, you know, when you have a loss in a family, there's usually like a pretty similar language around like how we do this, you know? Like, even if there's differences, you know, it's like, well, our family has this tradition, or we do this, or some people want to go in the back room and don't want to talk about it, and some people want to go out drinking or whatever. But what I thought was kind of interesting, and I just think, you know, for people who listen, like so many people go through loss. So many people have different kinds of grief. And, you know, the thing that I remember, one of the things that I remember most prominently about when Leslie died was how much I had to see that I'm not in control of the way other people feel, react, or cope.
Yeah.
And like, as a parent, you kind of learn that with your kids, but mostly you try and get your kids to behave like you do.
Yeah.
So
or they do a little bit because it's learned behavior.
Exactly.
Right.
But I think that was so interesting because, you know, especially in a culture where we're being told like, we need to be more emotional with each other in whatever workspace we're in. Like Valerie and I have had to deal with things, or like, well, Travis is, you know, newer to our world, but like we all deal with things. But that's one of the things that I remember most is that like, I really had this incredible experience of like seeing like, you gotta make room for everybody and everybody's process. And like, I remember like they brought in a grief counselor, and the grief counselor was like,
just sat there
like,
while we did.
And we like processed.
We just went out. And
We
just
totally,
started
because I was
talking.
like, this is how I'm feeling.
And then she was like, thank you for coming to our session. You did nothing, but you opened us up.
No, but we had a person there just to like literally hold space, right?
Yeah.
They held space. And I wonder if you had any kind of like reflection, you know, even a little tidbit on what it was like for us to like all realize that like, we're all grieving the same thing in our own way, but there's still things that like we shared about that process. And I think it's amazing we came out of that without like anybody fighting. Like I was near losing my mind because we literally like had to go back to work while we were still grieving. And we had to like literally write him out of the show, and there's all these things. But I wonder if you kind of remember anything, you know, in that vein about what it was like to like go through that as a group.
I was happy that the group was there because I had people to lean on. You don't know, there's moments when it hits you. Like I didn't, you know that it would hit me in certain ways that it hit me, and then I would be exposed because as I'm someone who doesn't like to necessarily show my emotions, and when they do come out, it's pretty strong. And I don't like people seeing me that way because they, you know, have these ideas of what type of person are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm not that. I'm not crazy. I'm not that. It was just emotional, you know? You and I had a moment on As They Made Us when Dustin did the scene. And I started thinking about my dad, and you were thinking about your dad, and then all that, it just comes out. And with Leslie, I had one of those moments because he was such a bright light and somebody who you cared about you and you cared about him, and he would tell you like it is, and he was honest, and he was loving, and he was all these things, and you don't expect it. It was just so unexpected to...
It was violent.
Yeah.
Like his death felt violent in that sense. And I think you really were in touch with that.
Yeah, I feel like I'm one of those people as well. I don't like to show my emotions, and when I do, I'm very pissed off about it. But I remember hearing about it and trying to take you off set because I don't like showing my emotions. And I'm like, oh my gosh, people are going to feel what we feel. And in that moment, we couldn't move. We just ended up being there. I'm very happy that we had the group as well. But like you said, it was difficult because I haven't dealt with death too much. And having to be in a space where you're a family, but then you try to be like, that's work, like separate, you know, like these are your coworkers, like these are people, you know, but we all bonded so quickly, I think, because we did start working during the pandemic, during a time where everything was going on and just being afraid. And even with, you know, we have cast members who are of older age and just worrying about them during thinking about COVID, you know, and wanting them to be protected and having anxiety ourselves because we're like, I just went to the grocery store. I can't bring anything to work. Let me make sure I double test, you know, just because of their safety and just having this feeling over them. And Leslie was the person that would always be like, long may we run. And he would talk about, oh, if this went 12 years, I'd be, and he would count how old he would be. So for someone who was so youthful and just constantly living their life and doing all the things that they've, like you could see that he was just doing anything and everything. Like when he got the opportunity, like I'm about to live. And he's like, oh yeah, honey, I got a new song coming out. I'm like, what? He was like, oh yeah, I need y'all to do this for my TikTok. And I'm like, what? I don't even know. You know, so just seeing someone who is so full of life and for it to be sudden and like you said, having to rewrite things and feeling like we just like, we're not doing him justice or we have to make sure that we're not just acting like he's not here anymore. And also reminding ourselves, like you said, that everyone grieves in a different way. Everybody has a different process. And me being like me being able to feel energy so much, I got to a point where I had to start blocking and being like, I can't take on, like I have a crystal that I usually don't, I don't have it with me today, but it's one that helps you not take on the emotional energy of other people. But
Jonathan is made of that crystal.
Oh, he's made of it?
That is like...
No, but it's like...
Just shed that.
Yeah.
I'm going to need some of that before I leave. No, but it's just... And loving the people that you're around. Like no matter how we try to separate, this is work and this is not, you know, we're still a family. And so we lost a family member. And I was like, you know, I can go home and pretend like I'm going to see him at work. And that's literally how I got through. But then I would get to work and he wasn't there. And I was like, okay, but he, you know, it's okay. Like you have this person, you have that person, you have to be, I've always been the mama of my circles.
It's funny because there's one thing that you said, and you said it literally right when we found out. And I want to end on this because it's something that was so like tragic when you said it, but it makes me laugh and smile when I think about it because you physically held me up. It felt like my legs went out from under me, you know, and you physically held me up. And I remember, and I felt very cared for. And like, no one cares for me. Like, I care for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't mean that people don't care about me. I mean that like...
It's a different position that we have taken on.
Exactly.
Like, we don't know how to let people...
Correct.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. It's like, and it's not, and people usually assume like, I got it. I'm okay. Like, 'cause I got it, whatever. But I remember what you said to me. You said, and I think you might have whispered it. You said, I'm not going to lose it because I got hair and makeup on. And it
was at the time?
Yes, because but it's so interesting because it's such a part of like not only what you do and like what you bring to us, but also like what we have to do as actors.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we have a level of like, and we're not curing cancer, like we're not doing Shakespeare, right? That's what I always say about our show. But like we have a level of like, you have to keep your shit together when you are a person who's pretending to be someone else.
Yeah.
And I just remember it was so interesting that like, it reminded me that like, one of the things I admire about you, you have an armor about you. And like, that's what you were saying. You're like, this is my space where like, I will keep it together in a way that's not denying what's going on, but that is protective.
I felt like I was trying to find a reason to not fall apart. Like, okay, can't.
Yeah.
What if we're still shooting? Like, or just, and then me knowing that if I fall, it's going to trigger something because I am the care. Like I take care of people. So I know if I've learned to allow myself to have those moments though, because I didn't before.
Right.
And that's overwhelming. But being in a situation like that, it was like, I have to learn how to allow other people to take care of me because I'm constantly... And I know that you do that as well. Right. And I think in that moment, I was like, this is what she needs.
Right.
And then even going into the hallway and finding him, I'm like, wait, this is what he needs.
Oh, so yeah.
And then I had my moment later.
Right. I didn't get to ask you, it's been 3 years. How has it changed for you?
Oh, I'm rich now. It's crazy. I mean, the change is as far as... So me and my wife, you know, being in LA, we were in a studio apartment for 10 years. and having the ability to move out of that and get a nice little 2-bedroom and get some cars that I like, and it provides just freedom. But I think I'm still the same person.
But what about the work? Like you came in, like imagine
He
like
didn't know upstage from
my
down.
God,
He was
not
stressed out.
man. So
but he was
I
also
mean,
putting pressure on himself
Totally.
because
I
he was
was-
like,
because it's an art form.
yo,
right?
me and Cheyenne would be over at that bar at run-throughs. Hearts like he's like your heart fluttering. I'm like, man, it's fluttering. It is more than fluttering. It's about to fly out of my chest. He's like, man. He's like, we got this though, right? I'm like, yeah, we got this. Me and Cheyenne was like trying to make sure we were each other's rocks, man, and come to the bar, and then I would say my little 4 lines and be like, oh yeah. Yeah,
No,
I
you're a
hope that
lot-
was funny.
You're a lot more comfortable.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think it was basically him having to recognize that he had it all along, but you were just thinking too much.
Yeah, but see, it's
Yeah.
a
You're too
different.
busy going, oh, I'm working with Mayim. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm working
Right.
with Kyla.
Yeah, but it was also.
And we've been doing it so long.
Yeah,
that
but
it's-
the run through is crazy. Like
and
when
run
you do
through,
it, like
the run through is when you
Oh, yeah.
throughout the week on a sitcom, we go through the script and we basically just run through
through
each scene for the producers and writers.
No
and stuff
cameras.
Like that.
It's
no
just us.
cameras,
It's just
us.
us.
So, but when you're doing a run through, it's important because if you do it wrong, the writers are going to rewrite things, or producers going to be like, "That doesn't work."
Exactly.
So it's a lot of pressure.
It
I'm
was,
sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it was. It just so much pressure. I know y'all trying to be done. I know.
No, you're good.
Yeah, it was just
Y'all
so.
can't kick us out.
I know y'all trying to kick us out when we like. So it was just so much pressure to where I go, man, and I see you do it, and I'm like, fucking brilliant. And I see her do it, I'm like, fucking brilliant. And then I'm like, are you gonna do that, or are you gonna blow it? Are you gonna blow it?
Are you going to blow it?
So I think, getting used to that was crazy. I had, and then, my second year was like, okay, getting a little bit better. And then after that, I felt like, now I'm in the pocket now. I feel like I can,
They
I'm
also-
doing the thing.
They started writing more to, I think, a more natural way for you to speak.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Meaning, because they're finding all of the ways that we're each funniest.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And this is something, and we can cut it if you don't want to talk about it, but
No.
you
Talk about anything.
you and Jonathan share something in that you're both very intelligent, you're both very funny. You're both
Fantastic
very
hair.
spontaneous.
Fantastic hair.
But there's a thing that Jonathan really doesn't like,
Reading aloud.
reading aloud.
I don't.
Dyslexic. Reading aloud is so intimidating for me. Like, y'all don't know, man. I would be there, like, reading my script over and over again aloud, just trying to make sure I don't mess up because I'm dyslexic. So I would see certain stuff and certain letters would jobble around. I'm saying the wrong word, right? And I would in school, it would be so bad to where I'm like, okay, and I know it's coming to me and it's my turn to
And
read.
that makes it worse because as soon as your heart is going, you really can't
You really
focus.
can't, yeah.
You can't focus. And then I would read aloud and I would blow it. And I'm like, these people think I'm dumb.
Yeah.
They think I'm dumb. I know the way I can see, like, when they come together, but
It's
I'm not
crazy. It's crazy
dumb.
because there's so many young kids and people who don't even know that they're dyslexic
Mhm.
and have that same experience.
Sure.
And then they start believing that they're dumb.
And it has actually
And it has
nothing,
nothing
to,
to
it has
do with-
nothing to do with
Yes.
intelligence at all.
Yeah.
But you get in your head about it.
Yes.
And also,
And then people are laughing when you mess
Right,
up,
absolutely.
which
well,
is
because
going to
that's
make you get in your
and
head.
that's discomfort.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, Jonathan and I, we have to read things out loud for ads and things. And I remember when we first started reading, like, he would be like, "It's fine, just do it. I'm not going to do it."
Yes.
And I was like, "No, we're going to do it." But it takes, it's an emotional thing. And we were recently by his parents, and it was Passover, and we were taking turns reading at the Seder, and I knew that in front of your parents, like, I could tell you were like, oh, because you had a history with them of them hearing you read out
Yeah.
loud. And I was like, why? And I was like, oh, it catches in your throat, like, because you have this perception, but it has nothing to do with it. But anyway, I thought
And
I
then,
would
also,
like,
and then also there's a comparison when someone else is doing it. Like I have siblings that'll be like, Kyla, and then imagine you being at a table read with us where I'm like, oh, give me a monologue. Let me read that thing real
Right.
fast. I'm going to yell it out. Like, were you ready? And then I still look over him and he's like,
Yep. Yeah. And I found out what would help me in high school was I would have to do it as a different character. What was crazy was, like, somebody was like, I would read aloud, and my teacher, Mr. Meyer, was like, I want you to read that like a preacher. And then I did it like a funny preacher, and it just
helps-
came out. And I was
helps
like,
you relax.
yeah.
though.
I was like, oh,
That's
wow,
crazy.
yeah.
It would bypass.
It would bypass whatever I was looking at and thinking. It was, yeah.
Amazing.
It's the psycho-emotional component of it where you got to get into that pocket. And actually, I was curious if fighting and acting had any sort of overlap.
Oh my God, so much. So much. Because when I fail, I wanna make sure I win. I wanna win the next time. I've had times where I've lost fights. And you go, damn, I lost. Now I gotta get back in the gym. I gotta work harder and I gotta do better. And so now, then I get back in it, and then I would win. And then I would, and I was so mad I lost that MMA fight. But anyway, it's just
I think your face is too pretty to keep fighting.
I
thanks.
can't do. I couldn't be your friend
Yeah.
if you. MMA stresses me out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, they're bleeding.
Yeah.
Stop the fight.
But that's the similarity.
won.
That acting thing, I think you have to have sort of the disposition of a fighter because you're always being rejected as an
Oh,
actor.
absolutely.
Over and over and over. You're losing all the time. But that mentality of, oh no, I'm gonna
I'm
win.
gonna win. Right. One
That's
day I'm
also
gonna win.
that's also life.
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
you get knocked down, right?
Yes.
It can feel like you're losing all the
Yeah.
time.
That's right.
I mean, actors, we kind of deal with it a little more than the normal, the average Joe. Like
True.
you're being told no every time you walk into a room.
Exactly.
Also, sometimes with details.
right,
Oh, yeah.
right.
I once got a-
no, because
Yes.
My favorite note that I ever got from my manager when I thought that I really thought I nailed this part. It was for a very prominent. It was a movie role. Like I rarely would go on movie roles, and I really thought I nailed it. And what came back was not vavoom enough.
Oh.
And I was like, that is a specific
Yo.
no.
And what's hard for
I
me is
can't
like
change that.
those notes like that, I had to get to a point where I was like, who the fuck told them that they know anything? Like because they would give notes that were like devastating and you're like, well, damn, how is that supposed to motivate me to do something else? Or you're talking
Mhm.
about my personality or like how I am as a person. So I kind of had to be like, oh, they don't know. Who gave you cousin is this that became a casting director? Think they can just say shit to me.
Right.
That's messed up. Y'all
Yeah.
kiss my ass. I'm out here.
Yeah.
On to the next. Like,
Right.
I had to start thinking like that. Not all
Exactly.
of them are like that. I'm
Yeah.
just saying. So
But yeah, you got to have that mentality. There's
gotta
something
keep
past
fighting.
this. There's some, yeah.
What
keep
about the
fighting.
actual act of fighting and acting, like dropping into the pocket and sort of being in this zone? Is there a similarity or an overlap?
There's an overlap. Well, I can only say when you're kicking somebody's ass, you're kicking their ass. Like you're in the pocket, right?
Mhm.
And it does sort of feel like when you're on, you know when you're on. Like I know we did that one scene. I'm trying to think of the scene where you were like, "We need one more. I want to do it one more time."
Mm.
And then that time we did it, we just
Can't remember.
I
know
we were
what time you're talking
firing
about.
on all
Yeah.
cylinders, and
Mm.
we went through the whole scene, and it was just like that was the scene right there. They
Yeah.
didn't. They
And they
didn't
were
even-
like,
One
thank
take,
you.
that
They
was
were
it.
like,
take, that
they were
was
like,
it.
Kyla, thank you for
Ex-
doing
yes.
it. But it's like having that mentality.
Because you're not thinking in that moment.
Yes.
You're just there.
Yeah.
And you're
Yes.
almost in some sort of
It does-
overpilot.
yeah, but that's the thing. See, it's almost to that point. Like I remember when I would fight, you're not even thinking about what you're doing. It just does it by itself
Yeah.
because you train. So it just does it by itself. You know, you're not thinking, oh, he's throwing a jab.
No,
Let me
it's-
move out of the. No, it just happens.
Because you train so
because
much that
train
your
so-
body
it's
is.
just your body's moving by itself. So I've gotten to that point a couple of times as far as the acting goes. But I think the difference is when you're fighting, you let your body just go. You know, I haven't been able to just. That's a complete zone out. I haven't necessarily. There's a one play that I did where I was able to zone out and not just be there, and then like the next thing I remember was over. It was like.
Oh.
That happens with improv a lot, though.
I was going to
gonna-
ask you.
Yeah.
It happens with
Yeah.
improv a lot
'Cause-
you don't even remember what you did. It's just like I don't remember anything. That's because you're just
What's
improv.
so much fun with improv is that I love going and doing improv at the Groundlings with him. And like, I think my favorite shows are always like when I'm too tired to care.
Yeah.
Mm.
Like when I'm like,
Yeah.
you know what? I'm exhausted. I haven't slept. Just say things
Yep.
and just do stuff. And so when I stop caring, it'd be way more fun.
That's right. It's when you improvise.
That's Kyla's acting
Exactly.
advice. When you stop caring,
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
It's a lot
I
of
have
fun.
not felt this. I mean, I feel my most comfortable when I'm improvising. I feel my
Mhm.
most comfortable. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Also, a lot of your physical comedy feels very much
love
like
physical.
it clicks into place, and then you have your own universe.
Right.
Obviously, the adrenaline. I mean, I'm thinking as a scientist, like when you're fighting, there's a level of adrenaline, and you have to slip into a primitive brain of fight, kill, win.
Yeah.
And with acting, like there's a lot of cognition that happens, like especially the way Kyla's brain works, the way mine, like we're always like, where am I? Because you have props too, but sometimes our scenes are literally about props.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like a lot
I'm
of
not
like,
even speaking.
right,
I'm just moving from table to table.
it's calculations. And that's why, especially with COVID, like we all had times when we had to miss. And it was like, if my body's not in the set where I'm learning the lines, it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Like I have to learn it, it's body memory. So
You know what's really cool? What you just said earlier when you're talking about the fighting thing, I realized that I like to try different things, and I act like I'm a character when I'm trying new stuff. Like if I'm doing something I've never done before, I'm like, oh no, you're this. Like when I do red carpets, I have to go, oh no, girl, you're not Kyla right now. You somebody else. Who you gonna be? What's your name? Because Kyla gets on the red carpet, and I'm like, I'm doing like goofy shit, and I'm like, and so nobody can get a good picture because I'm smiling and talking for the photographers. It's horrible pictures of me out there. But I realized I had to turn into like a different character, so I kind of do the same thing you do with reading, with other activities that I'm trying.
You had told me something Don said about pitching.
Don Ria, who created Blossom, he recently said that he himself has never pitched anything, but Michael Jordan has. So every time he goes in, he's Michael Jordan, and he's going to go in, and he's the best.
There's a lot of science about that type of rehearsal.
Well, I really, that feels like a good place to kind of end our time.
I know, because we can sit here and talk forever,
I know.
man.
But I really, there's so much that is enjoyable. There's so much that's enjoyable about each of you, but together it was really fun to get to talk to you and like share this space with you.
We were controlled today.
Also, shout out to anyone in LA who wants to come see y'all do.
Oh.
Do you have a regular Groundling schedule?
Because these two are amazing.
Not necessarily regular. I mean, a lot of Thursdays I'll be doing
a lot of Thursdays. There's a gas show,
but there's a show coming up that I will be performing in, and that'll be the main show in a couple of months.
Oh, awesome!
So check out Groundlings.
Yeah, Friday and Saturday night. In about 2 months, I think I should be.
Anything else we can plug before we say goodbye?
No, not really. Make sure you're watching Call Me Cat. If you're not, you better get on that thing.
Proud Family.
Catch up.
Proud Family.
Proud Family is on Disney Plus.
Yep.
Still a part of the Disney fam. And then, just trying to grow up and be like Mayim one day. You know what I'm saying? Producing and directing and doing the damn thing. You know what I'm saying?
I'm trying to think of what my podcast gonna be called.
Right.
Well, thank you both for being here. This was really fun. It was awesome.
This was fun.
Thank you.
It's Mayim Bialik's breakdown. She's gonna break it down for you. She's got a neuroscience PhD